This is exactly like recording the outgoing voicemail message on your tape answering machine.
You almost wear the tape out on the first day you have it.
No one is available to take your call.
Welcome to this week's episode of the Cool Dad Shirt Podcast. In this week's episode, we'll be talking about
the evolution of the periodic table, the correlation between the song Thunderstruck and Mount Everest, and a very touching tribute to guitar legend Jeff Beck.
The guitar legend is perfect. Welcome to the show here. It's been a couple weeks here. We've had a little break. So much to talk about. I was listening to some Faith No More just before we joined the call, so I am charged up to say the least.
Epic, right? Was that their big song?
I was not listening to Epic. I was listening to another fantastic hit. I cut it out before we jumped on the call because I didn't want to get in trouble, but it was The Real Thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's good stuff. And I remember it kind of blowing my mind when it came out. It's so freaking heavy, and then there's beautiful piano in it.
Yeah, great stuff. So it's good to be back. You know, one thing about being dads is sometimes there's just so much cool dad shit to do. You don't even have time for a cool dad podcast, which we've learned the last couple of weeks here. But
that's exactly true. Yeah, my list is growing of things to get to. Some things cool, most things not. So
we'll check them all off. Cool or not, we got to do it.
All right, that sounds good.
I got a lot of things open here, Rich. So if I seem distracted, I got multiple monitors going. I got notes. I got my phone over here. Just before I jumped on the call, I saw that Van Connor from the Screaming Trees passed away.
Dude, this is like really weird. Monday night, I had my boss has been bugging me to jam. It's very weird playing with your boss. He plays bass, and I got back on guitar. Yeah, I've been doing a lot of bass lately, but I got back on guitar, and one of the songs he wanted to do was "I Nearly Lost You" by the Screaming. I just played that song 3 days ago. That's crazy.
It's such an incredible song. I remember playing it, in the 90s with the cover bands that I was in, and it was a fantastic song. One of many great songs by the Screaming Trees.
Was it? I for some reason when I was looking up how that was played, or just maybe a video or something like that, I thought I saw on the side panel on YouTube something about the troubled story of Screaming Trees. I don't think I know anything about the background. Is there like stuff there? Was he struggling or?
Yeah, good question. I don't know. I didn't follow a lot of the personal lives or the history of the band to sort of speak on it.
I am a huge fan of 90s music. Yeah, it just, after the polished 80s and the hair band and stuff like that, and the virtuosity of a lot of the guitar players, it started becoming a caricature of itself, I think. And, Kurt Cobain is, I think, credited with an awful lot of simply just going back to loud rock and guitar. But that turned into some super melodic things, like a pop rock kind of thing. The acoustic guitar came back a lot more melodies returned. And that was the time I started learning guitar. So that was just a great time in my life to experience the music. And you were actually playing out at that time, right?
I was. Yeah, we played all those songs.
Yeah, that was well done. And you were in the Albany area at that time, right?
I was. At the time, it was a great place to be a musician. There was plenty of venues and opportunities to play both cover and original music. And it was nice that our original music was so broadly accepted.
Yeah, what was, I remember seeing you, what was the place, like the old diner, the Silver Diner down in New Scotland?
Yeah, that was Quintessence.
Quintessence.
First of all, got a lot of history at Quintessence. Both Nancy and I love that place. But yes, right next to it was Valentine's. Started out with just a bar downstairs and a stage, and they expanded upstairs with a much larger room and a stage. So we played many weekends at the old Valentine's.
That's very funny. I remember climbing upstairs. It was sort of a weird area, but they got like all the cool. I mean, these venues are always kind of weird anyway. But they got awesome bands there, original music, just like you were saying. That was great.
Yeah, it was terrible to load in. It was probably 35 stairs. You had to haul all your gear up. You were exhausted before you played. You'd have to get there so early so you could regain some strength and energy before your first set.
Power up with some chicken wings or something and recover.
So, and I don't mean. Oh, go ahead. I didn't mean to.
Well, I was going to say, did you have any like Spinal Tap moments back in those days? Amazing stories of.
I swear, it's like you set me up. I swear. So funny. I'm trying to think of the name of the band. I don't know how I remember this. The band was 100 Acre Wood, and they were performing there one night, and they had the speakers hanging from the ceiling, and one of the speakers caught on fire. It was it was unbelievably exciting and scary and dangerous and rock and roll.
That's fun. That just reminded me. So along the lines of fire in bands, the band I played in for a short time, we actually had a good run in Saratoga during the summertime, which is a big deal here in upstate New York. And we were playing at this bar, the City Tavern, and we were rocking out. The place was packed because it was like July or August in Saratoga. And I remember there was a team of a bunch of these frat guys, and we were playing some song that, people were jumping up and down. And one of the dudes jumped up and grabbed the sprinkler system, like one of the pipes, and it snapped and broke, pointing right at the band. And we were just sprayed with water. It was coming down like crazy. Alarms going off. People they weren't running out, but they were hustling to get out of there. Of course, we're all holding electronic gear with, cables all over a floor that's filling with water. Cops showed up, fire people showed up. It was, that was our Spinal Tap moment of just completely over the top. So you had fire, I had water.
Yes, exactly. Two of the many I don't know how many elements there are, but those are two important elements.
I think those are the original elements. Was there 4 original elements? I think that the table is much larger now, but
is wind one of them? Wind, fire, water. I don't know, but
eventually we found xenon and some other things too. But the original 4, I think that was 2 of them.
Man, incredible. I hope none of your gear was damaged.
No. I think the bass player had to dry out. I think there was a little drying out, but we were frantically unplugging things so as not to get electrocuted. Yeah,
for sure. That's probably the worst mix. You're probably better off with fire than water when it comes to electronics.
That's true. Yeah. Probably.
Rich, if I had to pick, if you said, Mike, you're going to be on stage with your drums and you had to pick, would you rather fire or water? I probably water for sure, because fire is pretty dangerous, but you could get shocked with water. So I don't know. It's a coin toss on any given day for me.
On the if you had the acoustic set, you would take the water. That's
I would take water.
You would lose your bass player, you would lose your guitarist, in the electrocution, but the acoustic drums would rule the day.
The problem is you can't get out of there in a hurry with the drum kit. If I could only pick one piece of my gear, what would I pick first?
And that's how it played out. I mean, when we started lugging soaking wet gear, I think it was in February or something. It was extremely cold. The sidewalks are all frozen, and now you've got dripping equipment. It was. Looking back, it's hysterical now, but it was quite miserable at the time.
Yeah, I can imagine. Back then you don't have plenty of extra dough to be replacing stuff either.
Nope. That was a big concern of how much damage there was. But no, we put the half stack in a little baggie filled with rice, and a couple of days later, it was good to go.
I don't want to dwell on death, of course, as interested as we are in music, right? I mean, Jeff Beck, another unbelievable musician and talent, recently passed away. And I had mentioned to you, while I was sort of a fan of Jeff Beck and knew of his music, I did not spend lengths of time diving into a lot of his music. And I started doing that this week and get more and more interested, discovering, so many great video clips and songs and music with so many other great artists.
Well, I think that's the brilliance of Jeff Beck. The average person may recognize the name because he's been around a long time, and he was, in the Yardbirds back when rock and roll was just getting up and running, and he played with Rod Stewart. Some people who know music may know a couple of those things, but he didn't have like a ton of hits per se. His big gift was the innovation and the cool stuff he did that was just different than everybody else. He inspired so many guitar players. And he collaborated a lot. People loved playing with him. And actually, if you watch a lot of his live stuff, Jeff Beck makes, I don't want to say mistakes, but he's definitely experimental. You hear him like sliding into notes that maybe were intentional at the beginning. So he wasn't perfected. He was very willing to try stuff. And that, I think, was the brilliance of Jeff Beck.
Yeah, nicely put. Again, I didn't watch a ton of it. The videos that I saw were very much that,
That's how I fell in love with Tal Wickenfeld, the bass player. She was very young, and he brought her along, and she was just amazing. And he would just give her the stage. They would just collaborate and play and jam a little bit, and he would just step aside and let her do her thing. And she's amazing. And she's gone on. She does a bunch of stuff now. I actually recently went back, and she plays guitar and sings and does a whole bunch of things. And it was great just to watch Jeff Beck give that kid a chance to do some amazing stuff.
I saw some of those too. It was her, Jeff, and Vinnie Colaiuta playing. It was so endearing and sweet. They were just amazed and smiling and laughing, and it was nice to watch.
Yeah, they were just soaking it up. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Soaking it all up. There was another clip where she was soloing, playing bass solo, and he was just sort of soloing on the top two strings.
That's real collaboration, yes.
So that is real. It doesn't get any closer or better than that.
But that does bring. Well, I was just gonna say I think we're gonna have a rash of these coming, right? All these famous people are into their 70s and 80s now.
I got two things that I wanted to bring up. I don't. You can take your pick. There's a bunch of other guitar players that I wanted to talk about and mention here, or we can go the other direction and just sort of reflect on some of the people that have been passing away. You know, like I can't even believe it. Since the end of last year and the beginning of this year, and Ken Block, he was a rally car and extreme sport guy, died in a snowmobile accident. You got Robbie Knievel, another individual. He just recently passed away. Lisa Marie Presley, Robbie Bachman from Bachman Turner Overdrive. The other kid from Eight Is Enough, Adam Rich, he was young.
Oh, I didn't know that one. Oh, no kidding.
Probably early 50s. Fred White from Earth, Wind, and Fire, the drummer. Who else? Oh, Terry Hall, lead singer of the Specials. He passed away in December.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's is it just because pop culture really kicked in, with TV and just the widespread pop culture movement of the 60s and 70s. We're just kind of in the time frame where the first major wave is coming through. I mean, this podcast shouldn't be about so much death, but it's interesting to reflect back on the times and how that's lining up. Yeah.
I don't know how long it takes for data to be released, but I am kind of curious, and I don't want to start going down like the whole conspiracy theory, and I am curious to see, and I know a lot of these people, what they've passed away from, right? Robbie Knievel and Terry Hall, unfortunately, they passed away from pancreatic cancer. Other people have had some long-term health issues. There's a lot of people just sort of out of the blue dying of heart-related diseases and heart attacks, right? So I'm curious to see what those statistics look like, but you got to scratch your head and wonder, are these sort of long-term or side effects or anything related to just recent years of health concerns with COVID-related stuff?
I think, well, it's probably a combination of many things. I think that people are a little bit more health conscious now, but we go back to several decades of eating margarine and a bunch of things that are going to catch up with you. And also, I mean, with science, with so many things getting better with science, we've done some experimental things too that maybe did not go as well as we had hoped. And it's all part of the human condition and learning and growing. And yeah, man, I don't know.
For sure. So let's get to the good stuff. I'm sorry to have brought that up. It just seemed like a lot of names were sort of popping up on the search page or the the news page each day. But we're talking about Jeff Beck, right? So I got to thinking he was considered, one of the great guitar players, right? Who do you sort of put, on that sort of top tier, right? Eddie Van Halen, I should have mentioned, he recently passed away too, but he's another guitar giant, right? So I was just compiling a list, just sort of thinking, if you had to maybe pick, a few top guys, who would stand out to you? And I know this is somewhat subjective, right?
Well, this is always a great conversation because, we have, who's the best at this, who's the best at that. And that's super subjective because there's a couple variables there. There's technical ability. So there are amazing, guitar players like Alan Holdsworth or Yngwie Malmsteen. These are not household names. But nobody can play their stuff. They are just off the charts. And then you have people like Joe Perry of Aerosmith, whose guitar playing is actually quite simple. And if you ever see them live, he's a little sloppy actually. But he writes guitar riffs that everybody knows. I mean, Walk This Way is going to be played for another 100 years. So as far as a guitar player goes, what is your legacy? Is playing super fast or connecting with people? And I think this is one of the things I love about Eddie Van Halen. He could kind of do both. He was a true pioneer. He was a virtuoso. He played like no one else. Just you watch all the people that try to copy him. But Van Halen had a pile of hits. So he was, he's right up at the top of that. Getting a little deeper. I'm a huge Alex Lifeson fan. Rush, the band Rush has been part of my the soundtrack of my life. I've been with them for just decades. And of course we lost Neil Peart a couple years ago.
Yep.
Or Peter, as I think is the way the Canadians properly pronounce that. Don't yell at me, Rush fans. I'm sorry. But yeah, I mean, and that's kind of how I look at it. There's the very relatable, great songwriting guitar players, and then there's the virtuosos, and you just have to figure out where you fall on that.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny because I am not a big Pink Floyd fan. I know a lot of people are. And that's great. They had a lot of great songs, but if I had to choose between, them and maybe a couple other people to, dial up, it probably wouldn't be my first go-to. However, I will say if I had to pick one single guitar solo that I would be my favorite, it would be the guitar solo from Another Brick in the Wall.
Dude, that is such a good solo. It is so... David Gilmour is amazing. And I love Pink Floyd for what they did, and there's a bunch of stuff that I was like way into a long time ago. I'm kind of at the point now where like I've heard it all, so I don't really need to go back to Pink Floyd. But every once in a while, what David Gilmour does, and he's not like a hugely technical player, but there's so much soul, and that is a great example of not super fast. Those bends are long and slow, and he's got a tone all of his own. Yeah, David Gilmour is remarkable.
That's exactly right. The tone and the sound of that solo, put that at the top of my list for any guitar solo.
Yeah, you just reminded me of something else too. It's funny. There's music that I was just never a huge fan of, but playing in a cover band, if you start playing stuff, I started liking what the guitar player was doing. I didn't know I liked it when I heard it on the radio. But when you start figuring it out, like I was never a huge Rolling Stones fan, but once I started playing a couple of their songs, I'm like, this is actually very catchy and very interesting what they've done with this. And so I just had a different appreciation. I think I've got 3 or 4 of those in the back of my head. I can't recall at the moment. But Rage Against the Machine, there's another one. That music is very angry. I always have a hard time relating to just lots of yelling and being upset about everything all the time. However, my band played a couple of their songs, and what Tom Morello is doing is super fun and super interesting and very vibey on the guitar. So totally get it from a different perspective.
Yeah, I put him on my list as well, Tom Morello. Not only great guitar playing, he had one of the best Rock and Roll Hall of Fame speeches that I've ever seen when Kiss was inducted. So if you ever have a chance, dial that up.
I'm going to have to look that up. I don't recall.
So, yeah, I mean, you mentioned Rage Against the Machine, right? I was thinking about this the other day. And we'll just stick to the rock category, right?
Okay, fair enough.
So, because, I mean, there's a lot, right? I mean, you could say EDM music, hip-hop music. There's some fantastic dance anthems that really get your adrenaline going. What rock song really gets your adrenaline going? And for me, there's none better than Thunderstruck by AC/DC. And I swear to God, when I hear Thunderstruck, I swear I can climb Everest in flip-flops and a tank top when that thing comes on.
Dude, that is at the top of the list. And that's a great example. Angus Young is... Dude, I don't know how AC/DC just releases the same album over and over again, but it's awesome every time. They just churn out these amazing songs that all kind of sound the same, but it's so good. And I have a band story related to Thunderstruck, since we're sharing old gig stories.
Yeah.
We played this place up in Glens Falls, and they had this super cool stage with this big screen that came down. And the sound guy is like, when you're ready, just like poke your head out and give a little wave, and we'll raise the screen for you. So the first song we were going to play was Thunderstruck, just to rev the crowd up, just like you were saying. It's such a motivational song.
Of course.
So this was our first time playing there. We didn't know, and so I give the little wave, and Andy goes into the riff in the beginning. And like the strobe light behind us comes on, and we can see all our silhouettes on the screen in front of us as the screen starts coming up. And then all the smoke comes out across the stage. Dude, this was the best rock and roll moment of my life in some crappy bar in Glens Falls, New York. But I just wanted to jump off the stage and just go bananas because the flashing lights, the smoke, people were jumping up and down. That was one of my best musical moments, and Thunderstruck is forever connected to that experience.
Yeah. I mean, how do you follow that? I mean, at that point, you just got to pack up your shit and go home, right? I mean, you're not gonna, there's number two. Like, you don't go to song number 2. That's it. You know, you're out of bullets. That's it. You know, we got nothing left in the gas tank, dudes. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
The crowd probably doesn't care because they're so charged up anyway. It probably couldn't be better for them.
I think you're actually right. I don't think that started a set anymore because for that exact reason, that is a tough act to follow. Yeah, that had to be buried much later in the set. Yep.
That's a second set closer. That's when it's late. You got to give them something to hope they come back for the set number 3.
That is the ideal placement. Yes, you wrap up a set, but hey, there's more of this.
Another song, you know, speaking of the second set closer, the song we used to play a lot was Sweet Emotion by Aerosmith. And I mean, not on the same level as Thunderstruck, but, you know, wrapping up a set 2 with Sweet Emotion was always enough to sort of keep them charged up for the third set.
Well, that song has a great build at the beginning between that little bass thing, that repetitive bass thing, and it's building and building and building. You got some maracas in the background. And I just saw, this is so weird. I just saw, I think like 2 days ago, a little clip of Steven Tyler talking about when they went to record, they didn't have any maracas.
That's right.
He claims, did you hear this story?
I heard it. You tell it, but I heard it.
He claims the shaker, or, you know, the maraca, it was actually a packet of sugar. Did I hear that correctly?
You heard that correctly.
That he was just shaking a packet of sugar in front of the microphone, and that is the actual sound.
And it could very well be true, you know. There's a lot of other things you can use. Like I used to have some different cans, you know, coffee can with some rice, or, you know, smaller cans with combinations of rice and stuff.
So back when you were on a budget, it was a DIY shaker.
Yeah, we ain't kidding. It was some Uncle Ben's in a Maxwell House can, but it sounded good.
Uncle Ben always delivers, man.
He always delivers.
It's never half-assed, man. He's always there for you.
Yeah. Uncle Ben, not only has he served more dinners than any other rice, he has appeared on more rock and roll albums in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s than any other rice.
And on a shoestring budget, you take it home with you, and you whip up some dinner later. Yes,
exactly. That's the commercial you want to see on TV, right? Do you want a rice that's never been on a pop album, or do you want to go to some Uncle Ben's?
That's a great selling point. Yeah.
Of course. So I was thinking about some other songs, and I'll just rattle a couple off because I think they're worth mentioning, right? I was actually listening to Faith No More when we joined the call, right? The Real Thing. That's a great song. Again, and these are not on the same level, but there's certainly songs that would sort of qualify for songs that really get, you know, your adrenaline going, right? Foo Fighters, that song Rope.
Oh, yeah.
Megadeth, Symphony for Destruction. You could probably pick almost any Iron Maiden song, but like The Trooper or Wasted Years are you know, they're way on the top of the list. Ozzy Osbourne, Bark at the Moon.
That's a good one, yeah.
That's a good one. Soundgarden, Jesus Christ Pose, or Searching with My Good Eye Closed.
Yes.
Those are some good ones. Van Halen, Unchained.
Yep.
The Dropkick Murphys, I'm Shipping Up to Boston. I mean, that one always, that is a fan favorite if I've ever heard one.
People love it.
Motley Crue, Kickstart My Heart.
Yeah, just I've always struggled to connect to Motley Crue. I don't know why. It seems like I should like them, but that song I actually do really like. Yeah, Kickstart My Heart is a good one.
Yeah, that's a good one. You know, there's a bunch of Kiss songs, right? Detroit Rock City, and the one that I really love is I Love Love Gun. That's another great one.
Yes. Detroit Rock City is by far and away my favorite Kiss song. What did you say? It reached perfection. What is?
Kiss in full makeup performing Detroit Rock City is the Da Vinci Code of rock and roll. You had flames, you had smoke, you had fake blood, you had full costumes, unbelievable stage presence, and just ridiculously loud rock and roll. You checked every box of rock and roll.
You check every damn box. Like, seriously, you get it all in that song.
Exactly.
Yep, that's killer. Well, I was going to say, I think that's the cool dad tip of the week is if you want to learn how to rock, the formula has been perfected.
Yes.
And it's Detroit Rock City.